James, can you hear me well? Hey, Alan, can you hear me well?
Yes, hello.
Hello, hello. Thank you for joining us. We're gonna give it a couple of minutes to allow people to roll in and join the space. There was a space right before this one about with Git grants and Neiman. I think it's closing up right now, and we'll get started.
Sounds good.
We are also waiting for Gaia, right?
Yeah, she'll be on shortly.
All right, I'm gonna get started. Thank you everyone for joining us today. Thank you, Alan, and the Dot Earth Project for this opportunity. I'm going to introduce ENS Academy first for those who are joining us for the first time. ENS Academy's mission is to accelerate the adoption of ENS worldwide. We bring ENS experts and entrepreneurs to share their knowledge with the global community. Our goal is to educate, support, and empower anyone who can benefit from this technology. We believe ENS to be an open public utility that belongs to the community. ENS Academy aims to be the place where we can all learn the fundamentals, skills, and possibilities of ENS. Today, we have the Dot Earth project with us, and we're very, very excited. The Dot Earth project is the first project to utilize ENS in a very new and innovative way. It shows us how ENS is really up for us to build on top of, and their project just is so exciting. I'm going to read their mission. Earth's mission is to create a faster way to explore on chain data. Their Block Explorer Atlas translates complex cryptocurrency transactions into easy to understand glyphs, as you can spend far less time being much more informed. The Nomad NFT holders, which is their NFT project that they're utilizing ENS with, will be the OGs of our ecosystem and the key to driving mass adoption. Welcome, Alan. I see some dot Earth requested here. Welcome,
Yeah,
Alan.
yeah.
Thank you
So
so much
that's
for joining us. Please,
Gaia is
that's
under that
Gaia.
account.
Okay,
Yeah, under the
perfect.
project.
Welcome. Please go ahead and let us know about you and about the Dot Earth project. What inspired this project, and in a nutshell, what is it about?
Yeah. So I'm Alan. I'm one of the founders of That Earth with Gaia, who's under the project account. I've been in crypto for about 5 years or so, 5, 6 years, in a lot of various ways. And as far as the project, initially, we were mainly focused on the whole concept of, like subdomains for ENS, but then we've also evolved sort of into driving additional utility to our nomads, which are the subdomains, essentially to product in Atlas. So that's essentially those are the two main things that we're focused on, mainly because I think while there is inherent utility in all the ENS domains, I think once you start um, getting into subdomains, you need to really think about how you drive utility specifically to those subdomains. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. I think ours is just one of many that are going to come about.
So, as I understand it, you are using ENS to launch your PFP NFT project and basically pack it with utility.
Yes, yeah, that would be one way to look at it. Yes.
So, what are some of the benefits of doing that? Like, what made you think about that and use ENS? I know subdomains are very, you know, they're packed with utility, but tell me more about your thought process to kind of go that route.
Yeah, we've always felt that, you know, um, so if you look at ENS by itself, it's very much it's a protocol, less of an application, which to me, protocols are really what get adopted. Those become standards, everyone builds on top of those. Right. And I think that if you think through sort of like the next layer iteration is how do you sort of take ENS, which is a protocol, and add another layer on top, whether it's like an application layer, a social layer. And I think these like ENS avatars that we have with the nomads do both of those things, right? So you have a sort of cohesive collection under one domain. Ours is earth.eth. And then there's this application that we're looking to build and integrate the nomads into, along with all the other subdomains custom subdomains that will be created off of earth.eth. So that's essentially what we're looking at. We just view this as sort of like an application and social layer, potentially on top of a protocol like ENS.
I think also just to add to that, I would say that our initial plunge into the whole subdomain space was that we think it's like a really cool way, like a very interesting, like decentralized way to connect communities, right? Like it's not just that you all own the same collections PFP, but you also tied in this like way with subdomains to each other and under an umbrella of like the project, which is earth.eth. So I think for both of us, we were thinking moving forward that this will be the way that collections are dropped and projects get adopted moving forward. For us, like the PFP collection was like a big way for the Atlas to be adopted. We wanted it. We wanted to build a community around it, and this, I think, is one of the best ways that we can think of.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I can't wait to see more projects figuring this out. I think you're setting the model for the template for future NFT projects to utilize this technology. But tell me more about what does it mean to what like you're talking about exploring on-chain data, making it easier to understand. How would someone kind of think about that? What does it mean?
Yeah. So, I mean, are you talking about in relation to like Atlas or something else?
Yeah, so in your mission, you're basically trying to create a faster way to explain to explore on-chain data. I know with subdomains you can set the metadata to whatever you want, right? So is that up to the owners of the NFT? And what kind of use cases or examples can you tell me about how we can utilize that and make it? What does it mean to make it easier? Are you creating a dashboard or like a
So,
user-friendly UI?
So there's, yeah, I think what you're probably talking about is the nomads in that. So every ENS domain, whether it's a subdomain or a base domain, parent domain like earth.eth, you have the ability to set different fields for it, right? You can set your routing address field, like your ETH address, you can set your Bitcoin address, you can set your Twitter, you can set your a bunch of social media, email, website. You can have all these fields that are fixed. You can also create custom fields, right? And then set those values, and those are stored tied to that domain. And you can do that. And we've already enabled that capability on our website specifically for the earth.eth subdomain. So if you own a Nomad, you can go connect your wallet and you can set these fields. We have some of the people in the crowd actually have a Quantum Tech account that the tech team that we've been working with has been absolutely fantastic. And as a tech partner in building out this entire platform. And so you can set those values now. Well, some of those values in the future we hope to enable more custom field setting and things like that, just like you get on, for instance, on ENS Manager with the base domains there. As it relates to like the Atlas product, we're just really trying to visualize a block explorer in a way that is more like user friendly, easier to read. You spend less time. If you think about the amount of time when you go to Etherscan to really try to dig deep and understand what's happening with people's assets and or their activity, there's a lot more effort that goes into it. And I just don't think we scale to millions of people through Etherscan. And I think it's a fantastic tool. I just don't think it scales well to get broader adoption because of the amount of effort and time that needs to go into it. So we're trying to rethink what that looks like as we try to revisualize what the chain data looks like for your everyday person.
And this will be only accessible for NFT holders, right?
No, that's not our model. Once again, we want to scale this to millions of people. And I don't think by putting an artificial gate of scarcity and say the only people who can use such a platform are people that hold NFTs, are special NFTs, right? What the Nomad holders are getting is, maybe special features. We have currently this token gated equity path. So we're trying to bring along people who join us early on this journey that there is a potential path to equity. We've gone through the process for that. When I say equity, I mean ownership in the product that's being built, right? So there's plenty of utility and value packed into the nomads, but the product we're building is for everyone. And we don't see any real benefit by limiting the usage of such a tool that would invite millions and instead of thousands, or billions instead of millions into this space, by putting a gate and say, oh, you have to have this. So hopefully we're rethinking, in this sort of like bear market, we're sort of reevaluating going from an exclusive model to an inclusive model, because we need to bring more people into this space. And the only way we're going to grow, and if you're even thinking about it selfishly, the only way your bags are going to pump is if we get more people into this space. So how do we do that? Well, we need to make it easier for people to understand exactly what is going on chain, how you understand what assets people have.
Right, absolutely. That sounds amazing. So if you are a token holder, if you are a Nomad holder, then you get it's kind of like a pro features that are not open to the public.
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
so go ahead, Guy.
Yeah, I was just going to say, yes, that was essentially the plan. And also, in addition to that, I mean, Alan mentioned the token gated equity, but we've also, we're working on giving Nomad holders access to like one free custom domain. So in addition to the domain they would mint with their Nomad, which is like one of the 10K numbers, you get to pick a custom domain. So whether you want like ensacademy.earth.eth or allen.earth.eth, you'll have access to one mint of that as well.
Right, and that's, I mean, .earth is such a cool root domain. I'm sure that's going to attract a lot of people. I would love a .earth with my name. But so tell me a little bit more about the equity part. What does that mean?
Well, I think it's great that you're asking that, and I really hope that more people start asking these questions from the projects. A lot of people call themselves investors, but I guess my question is, what are you investing into, and how do you sort of quantify that? And one of the things that we're trying to change is to rethink, at least start a conversation through actions as to when people buy an NFT or a token, that there's actually some sort of path towards actually equity ownership in the IP and the product or services that are being delivered. You see a lot of projects that are raising money, capital, and everyone's excited, but at the end of the day, all you have is essentially maybe access to a Discord, special channels, and maybe some merch. And that's sort of like all we've seen people being, like actually being given. So we're trying to really put our money where our mouth is with this whole concept of like token gated equity so that at least there's some sort of like reserved or amount of percentage in a company so for the nomad holders, right? And we can't guarantee that's going to happen. We've gone through all the process to try to make that happen, and some of that is going to be time based, but at least we're actually trying to follow through on that. And I hope that other projects and other potential quote investors start really questioning, what does it actually mean to be an investor and what actual sort of assets they have outside of their NFTs, which if that's how you value that, that's completely fine. But just understand the games that are really being played in just in a broader like investment space. So we're really trying to Web3 is about ownership. We're actually trying to deliver you in ownership.
Oh, I think that's awesome. It's you're basically solving the problems we are seeing with Web3. And tell me more about your first of all, why .earth? Like, why did you pick that root domain?
Well, I if you look at the time that I got it, um, I very loosely had this idea. you know, I think it's the one thing everyone can agree on is that we're all on Earth, and I think we're in a time and a space where people don't agree on much. Socially, politically, economically, a lot of different things are going on, but we're all on Earth. So I always thought that conceptually, if you were to build around anything, that Earth was one thing that we could probably all agree on, at least 99.9% of us.
Yes, I really like that. And what inspired the avatar? I see that you have like different landscapes, aerial displays, uh, different skies, and so tell me more about that PFP part.
Yeah, we actually had Ham, who was really phenomenal, did a really great job of creating these avatars for us. I think, like everything else with the project, we really wanted to flip the script on what the standard was for a PFP. So where usually, the focus is the actual avatar or the persona in the front, we wanted to give an emphasis to the kind of background that also kind of merges with the foreground. So the whole Earth concept comes with this idea of landscapes, right? So we have about 70 plus different landscapes on Earth that are depicted in the nomads. And then we also have these sort of like whimsical like displays, like we have like different planets, we have rainbows, we have satellites, we have all kinds of things that are happening in the sky, we have nomads that are changing colors. All of it's to kind of depict our both capturing Earth in like a significant way, as well as capturing what our Web3 lives are in some ways. So like on the left side, the idea is to have like a real landscape on Earth, and then on the right, it kind of gets abstracted away into these like colors, almost like a barcode. So it's almost like the left side is like your rootedness in Earth, and then the right side is like your abstractness in the digital space or Web3 or whatever that is. So it was really to capture this like dichotomy of our waking lives and our lives in Web3 in some ways.
Yeah, that's super creative. I really like also the word nomad. It works well with the .earth, right? Because that's how we started. We are nomads on Earth, and so I believe you are going to burn whatever is not minted. So tell me more about that, and tell me about the mint and when is that happening?
So the mint is started actually on August 22nd, and that is ongoing. You can go to earth.domains if you want to mint. You can actually now pick your number if it's available from 000 to 9999. So you can think of like the 10K club on Earth, something along those lines, similar to the 10K club that we see on ENS, right? So that is out there. As far as related to any sort of burning, pausing, stopping, I think for now we're really focused on communicating and driving so people can understand the value in the nomads and what the utility is and some of the other things we're working on. And then, we have a lot of advisors on the team, and we will discuss with them and internally as it relates to anything related like to supply or anything along those lines.
Right. I'm gonna go in and check out if my 4 digit is still available. And I see that like you guys basically before the name wrapper, the ENS name wrapper is launched, how did you have to do any like your custom smart contracts? Because you're basically using the name wrapper before it even came out. But can you tell me more about that and how you're doing that?
So the name wrapper, you can actually, I mean, this is on the GitHub, right? So ENS has a public GitHub, and you can see there as it relates to the name wrapper, sort of the latest updates on it. And the other way that we've also deployed everything is that it will be upgradable. So I think as far as like capability wise, we're delivering all the capabilities of the name wrapper in that the name wrapper lets you take an ENS domain, add additional capabilities to it, such as like subdomains that are transferable, ownable, buyable, sellable, and functioning just like any other ENS domain. And then also being able to set the metadata. And when you can set the metadata, that's how you get the traits and the PFP and the avatars. So we're doing all those things. I think ENS, I doubt that whatever sort of deployment that they release now, because that they've done it in an upgradable way, it is because of the fact that they probably will have further iterations as well.
That's great. And when is Atlas going to be launched? I'm very excited to see the capabilities that you guys are enabling. Tell me more about like, so I can mint today, but when am I able to use the actual tool?
Yeah, so the Atlas actually we're still working on. We actually have a working demo that's pretty early stage, and we've shared it with some of our advisors internally. I think that we don't want to give a date as to when it'll be publicly available because we want to get it to a certain point. But it's going to be iterative, and we'll continue to add feature functionality to it as people use it and give us feedback. So there's no date on it, but we'll certainly share more information on it as we're more clear and have a more sort of concrete set of like features that we want to put out.
That's super cool. And for those who just joined the space, Atlas is basically Earth's visual block explorer that they're creating. It's like a search engine for the Ethereum blockchain where um, it has a superior user experience using unique and innovative visual language. So they'll be able to graphically represent the all block interactions. So instead of going on Etherscan, you can just go to Atlas and look up the data you're trying to find. So that's really cool. Can what else can you guys add before I go to James? I think James has some questions as well, and then at the end we would like to open it up for some Q&A from the community.
I guess Alan's not going to take that. I think in terms of Atlas and the visual language, I think we definitely feel like it's a unique thing that we're bringing to the space. We have this whole thing of we're trying to see instead of read the block, right? Like we're really trying to make it easier for people to understand interactions and things that are going on. We really want one of the features that we've been working on is being able to share sort of interactions easily on social media like Twitter. So instead of having Etherscan links that people share amongst each other to show, big transactions, you'll be able to share like these single glyphs. Like I think some we started to share very, very early stage, but we're basically working with a hex grid, and each interaction or transaction will be encapsulated in a hexagon. So instead of sharing links, you just see these images, and hopefully it'll be much easier to kind of understand or group behaviors or start to create trends between collections and DeFi and everything else. I think the other unique thing is that we're not just looking at NFTs or DeFi in silos, but we're actually looking at Web3 as a whole. So we're bringing together all of these different types of transactions and data. So yeah, we're all super pumped about it, and it's definitely going through the stages of iteration, but hopefully we'll have something to share soon.
Thank you, Gaia. James, do you have any questions for the Earth team?
Yeah, I would love to know what your thoughts are on ENS in general. So, like, if we take a step back, from your perspective, how do you see where we are with ENS in terms of adoption, growth? Where do you see the industry headed? What excites you about ENS? Would love to hear your thoughts from a macro perspective.
Yeah, I think ENS is as soon as people realize that the best way for ENS to get adopted is for people not to know they're using ENS, I think we're really going to see a lot of broader adoption. And the more applications and utility driven to ENS will also sort of bolster the adoption of it and the value in it. And the reason is like right now it's pretty difficult to measure utility for ENS, right? You get what you measure. I really believe in that. And it's really hard to measure ENS utility in a very objective way. It's super cool that we can put it in our Twitter headers, you know, in our profiles, and that's great. That is some form of utility. You can set your reverse lookup record. That's another form of utility for things like Etherscan and other sort of like Uniswap and things like that. But how do you really get more and more adoption is to really measure utilization, maybe of the fields that the custom fields that are there, how communities potentially use them. And before it was really difficult for communities to use them because you couldn't really form a community around an ENS domain until you had like subdomains, which were transferable and ownable. And that's what the name wrapper contract enables. So I think we're going to see a lot of different utility cases from this subdomain concept, this like ENS avatar concept, because it creates this like stickiness. So I think we're still very early. I don't see any real competition to ENS. There's unstoppable domains, but I think they're focused more on raising revenue in the next round of raising than to actually build out more and more functionality on top of like their domains, right? So I'm really looking forward to people building with ENS, utilizing ENS in a way that we can actually measure and use it, you know, more for like the intended utility, which is like human readable. And then honestly, just the pure sort of like speculation that we're getting now from the domain space. I don't have any problem with speculation. I'm all for it. It's a part of the market. There's nothing wrong with it. But we need the other sort of like utility driver and measure in applications and things like that. So people are like, okay, I understand. I think it would be great if like browsers natively integrated .eth, right? Into there. I don't know if we'll ever get that. I know we have like, I think like Opera does it and like Brave maybe does it. But we need like Chrome and we need like Safari and we need like Edge to really integrate the whole ENS protocol natively, so people don't have to take an extra step or get a plugin. So it's really early. The good thing is, I mean, I guess it's good in some ways, bad in other ways, but like ENS is really at the forefront of that. And as we move forward in a space where everything is driven by ownership with Web3, what your digital identity looks like, I definitely think ENS is part of that conversation. And it'll be really interesting to see how it fleshes out.
Well, one of the things that really has surprised me is um, the lack of adoption of ENS, and specifically in terms of replacing the wallet address, right? Like, I would have thought by now it would be much more broad based that, everywhere you look, people would be using an ENS name instead of the long hexadecimal wallet address. Um, in your mind, what do you see as the catalysts for mass adoption of ENS? Will it be, those billions of gamers that come into crypto that want to have an online identity, that want it portable, that want to own their in-game assets and things like that? Or do you think it will be something else?
Yeah, I think the adoption you're speaking of or lack thereof as it relates to like the hexadecimal string or name, keep in mind that privacy is still a really big deal in this space, right? And some people don't want to make it easier for you, even though, yeah, you can just compare their addresses, but it's a lot easier for someone to see Alan versus 40 plus characters of hexadecimal, right? And then having to try to remember that, especially when you see a sea of these all over the place. So I think some people find that as a very simple way to maintain their privacy to some degree. And I think that as it relates to like ENS, like how do we sort of take that to the next level? We need more like integration of ENS into more applications, services, different experiences. And once we have that, that's when that model, that pattern, people will pick up. People just need to see like one or two like really interesting successes using ENS. And then people will be like, oh, well, we should do that. It'll be a no-brainer, right? It's like, why wouldn't we do it this way? And then that's how you start sort of like changing the narrative in the conversation. I think it will happen. This whole industry is very heavily on like speculation. As you can see, even without utility, we're getting a massive amount of speculation on that future utility, right? But now we have to like really work to like to deliver that utility, and that utility is via application, services, and products to the market.
Great point. I would ask a follow-up question, which is related, and that is when you think of value, the values of ENS assets, right? Like, do you see people valuing them more so on utility? That okay, if I have a short, easy to remember, easy to spell ENS asset, I can use it to send, receive crypto. No one's going to make a mistake. Or do you see it as a flex? I own, a three number .eth. Or do you see it as more so portable Web3 identity that no matter where I go in the metaverse, I take that with me, and I guess single sign-on would be a part of that. Like in terms of value, how do you weigh it?
I, to me, like it's all of those things, and that's a good thing. So it's good and bad. It's good that it could be all those things. The bad part of it is it's nebulous and it's hard to pin down, right? As far as what the specific utility or the main value proposition of it. I mean, we've already seen like this is not the same, but sort of analogous. In certain countries, if you have like a single digit license plate or something like that, that's like a flex, right? If people start using like the 10K club or like we're trying to form 10K club on Earth, if that becomes sort of a flex for people, that could be very interesting. The sort of concept of digital identity. And Guy and I went down this route for at least a month, really trying to sort of figure out or put some parameters around digital identity. We realized that it is very nebulous and it's not necessarily something that you want to target so directly because you can think of it like an octopus or something. There's so many ways that you can look at digital identity. ENS is certainly part of that conversation because I think that Ethereum itself and all the layer twos and side chains are really the early sort of like stage of what is going to be like this very vast Web3 ecosystem. And because ENS is a big sort of like part of like a portable identity in that, it's going to be part of the conversation. We're just so early. I don't know how to look to say anything more than that. It'll be part of the conversation. I just can't say exactly how.
Great points. Thanks so much.
Thank you, James. I want to open it up for the audience. If you have questions for the Earth team, please go ahead and request now. We are going to end the space at 3:45, so we have about 10 minutes for Q&A. And meanwhile, basically, I want to let everyone know that you can now go to earth.domains and mint your Nomad. You can also configure your Nomad, it seems like, and what the team mentioned today, that you will get a subdomain that's like custom if you mint basically a 10K digit. You can pick your digits as well, but you can also potentially get another subdomain that's custom to you, like we would get ensacademy.eth. And with that comes a lot of benefits, like these pro, the pro that you will get advanced pro access to pro features for the Atlas tool. The Atlas tool will be open to everyone. Now, you don't have to have a Nomad to access the tool once it launches, and the team is actually working on launching that right now. So yeah, we're waiting for the audience to request questions, but meanwhile, I'll mention that we are going to upload this to our podcast. So Alan, you can actually share that with your audience so that it'll answer some of the questions. I'm sure some of the questions we talked about here in the space today, they're going to be on the minds of people moving forward. But I really think you guys are creating something that's going to be a template for future projects. You know, what you're doing is very valuable. Um, we didn't get much questions yet, so um, I'm actually I don't have any more. I actually asked you all the questions we have. I'm very excited for the Atlas project. So if you have anything to add that you want the community to know about you guys or about the Earth projects. Oh, actually, I do have one last question. I see that there is like you can have Paris.France.Earth. So can I mint or can you how can we get that to be uh, kind of clear? Where can I have subdomains if I have a subdomain with you guys?
Yes, you can. And I think that is one of my favorite tweets that we did is that we did a whole thing of my subdomain got a subdomain, right? I got a subdomain. So you can, then this is already built into ENS, right? And that you can put subdomains on subdomains on subdomains. And it's just a matter of who controls sort of the parent domain in that scenario. So if you got france.earth.eth, you could then take, and if you wanted to mint all the cities off of France, right, and paris.france.earth.eth, you could do that. And you would only be able to do that because you own France, right? Now, those capabilities are not there on the UX at the very moment, but that is something that is supported today within the domain.
That sounds awesome. We have someone who requested, I think, 1979.earth.eth. Go ahead.
Hey everyone, it's Necrotic. I am a huge fan of the project, and I just had a brief question. I'm interested in what sort of planning you've made for the V2 of Name Wrapper, which I know has been announced and is already being worked on. Obviously, V1 is just honestly barely been released, but I'm thinking about future compatibility. And I know you haven't talked too much about the fuses, the burning the fuses to prevent, rugging of the subdomains. And I was wondering what your plans have been for future compatibility. And I'll step down. Thank you.
Thanks for that question. And Necrotic, I gotta take time to give a shout out to Necrotic. He's been like one of our best community members from day one. He is like the OG of the OGs and really has been a big part of success in the project. So I just want to, thank you specifically from the project for everything you've done and just supporting in the Discord, on Twitter, just across the board. To answer your question, as far as the fuses, we haven't gone through that process yet. We have every intention to. It's just that it's so early. We don't want to, if there are any sort of like gaps or upgrades that are necessary, or hey, we might need to redo something. Obviously, we'll be very highly in high, how to say this, and we'll communicate everything ahead of time. You can see everything on chain. We have no intention, obviously, of rugging, and we'll do the fuses, the sort of burning to sort of disable the ability for the rugging of subdomains in the future. We're just sort of giving it some time. And as far as the sort of V2, I mean, that means there'll be a V3. So one of the things ENS or V4 potentially, right, is that ENS has done this in a way that things are upgradable in a way that we've deployed our use of the name wrapper. It will also be upgradable. So we intend to do our very best to keep our subdomains in line with the sort of more so quote like official sort of like versions as sort of ENS versions up as well.
Thank you. Thank you, Narcotic. And yeah, I do have a question about the token gated equity. So let's say I have a nomad, and how would that translate? Would there be, do I have to like trade the nomad in order for me to take advantage of that? Or, I mean, if, let's say it has equity, or is there shares that you will be distributing to the nomad holders?
Yeah, so the way it would work is the each nomad has basically potential claim on X number of shares, right? And then to actually redeem those shares, there would be a process you would have to go through. And it would involve a KYC process. You can't own something at this point as it relates to shares or equity in a company without going through KYC. We've already seen this. If you look at the drop that for other lens, I think other side, sorry, they had people go through KYC process. I know that sort of, again, it's not sort of, it is against a lot of this sort of like ethos of this space, but the current structures, and to be honest, and just to be frank, that sort of excuse at this point in my book is why a lot of these projects don't actually even bother giving you equity, is that they're like, oh, well, it's hard. And you would require KYC. So we'll keep the equity, we'll raise the money, we'll get all the sort of capital and the benefits of raising and actually having ownership, and we'll give you like tokens for a Discord, right? So I think that um, this is one way that we're trying, and then we'll see sort of how it plays out, and then sort of get feedback from like the SEC, and then maybe try a different path in the future. But at least we are trying to create a path for every nomad holder to have equity in the company from day one.
Perfect. Yeah, not only you guys are setting the standard for future NFT projects to use ENS, but also when it comes to equity, you are very generous in sharing your equity with the holders. That's going to be very exciting. And of course, there's going to be uh, these hurdles, but I really appreciate what you guys are doing. You're creating a template for all of us. And with that, guys, we want to thank you again for joining us. We will share the podcast with you, and we would look forward. I'm gonna mint my. I'm 7147, so I'll be. Hopefully, no one here will go mint that before me, but it's available. I'm gonna go and mint it, and then how would I go about getting my personal subdomain? So would I have to reach out to you guys right now to create that for me?
So that functionality is not out as of now. You're talking about custom subdomains. The good news is when you own a Nomad, you get a free custom domain mint once that functionality is available. And so it's basically a twofer. You get your number and you get your personal in the future when we release that functionality.
Perfect. I'll be waiting for that. Thank you again. And for the audience, please give the Earth project a follow. Follow Alan for more updates on what they're doing. I'll be following closely to use the Atlas tool, and I think the Atlas tool is going to provide immense value for Web3 community. And with that, I want to end the space. But before that, I'm going to announce our upcoming space next Thursday, September 8th at 12 p.m. CST. We are going to talk about soulbound tokens and how that intersects with ENS. So follow us to learn more, and thank you all for joining.
Thank you so much for having us.
Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you, guys. Good luck. Bye-bye.